Hello, let's get into surface area and volume. Here are the definitions of surface area and volume and their formulas for various 3D objects. Please pause the video to draw out the 3D objects and copy down your formulas. Not all formulas will be demonstrated during this recording. Let's review the problem. Find the surface area and the volume of this cube. Please make sure you reference your formulas. So for a cube, surface area is always 6 times the side squared. Notice that I plugged in my numbers. 2.5 squared is 6.25 and finish out. Let's look at the volume side. Seems pretty simple for cubes. Let's move on. Copy down the problem, pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume when you're ready to check yourself. Let's find the surface area of this rectangular prism. That's a lot of work. Please understand that because the length, width, and height were not actually identified in this problem, it doesn't matter where you put your numbers. So I chose the length to be 6.4, my width to be 5.1, and my height to be 10.2. I didn't have to do those numbers in that order, but it just helped me to keep everything organized in my formula. Same thing for volume. Hope you got it right. Copy down the problem, pause the video to work it out on your own, resume the video to check yourself. Understand that the big B represents the area of the base, which can differ on pyramids. Therefore, you should recognize the base shape and know how to calculate the area of that shape. For this pyramid, a standard pyramid, the bottom is a square. So, for a pyramid, a square is the base, and there's 4 triangles that make up the face sides. So for my surface area, I'm going to do area of the base, which is s squared, and 1/2 base times height for one face of the triangle. Notice that I used 12.1 as the height. Even though it looks like it's slanted, that is the true height, vertical height of the triangle. Let's look at volume. For the volume, we're doing the volume of the pyramid, not of the triangles. So what I did there was I used the 11 in the middle of the pyramid because that is the true height of the pyramid. Let's move on. Copy down the problem, pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume the video when you're ready to check yourself. Did you catch that extra step needed for the slant height? So for slant height, S represents slant height, which is 13. But where did the 13 come from? If you look carefully, there's a right triangle with a missing side inside the cone within our picture. And this should trigger you to use Pythagorean theorem, which will help you determine the slant height of the cone. So you remember Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Even though you weren't given the slant height in this problem, you were given enough info to figure it out. All problems are not straightforward. Did you get it right? Copy down the problem, pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume the video to check yourself. Remember, all problems are not straightforward. It's up to you to notice different units given and how to convert them where necessary. Did you notice that you were given values that are in different units, 8 inches and 1 foot? Keep that in mind as you work this problem. So I changed 1 foot when I used it for the height to 12, if you noticed in the problem, because 12 inches equal 1 foot. You are required to understand how to convert units when necessary in any of your problems on this test. Copy down the problem, pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume the video to check yourself. Here's an actual multiple choice problem. This problem is comparing the volume between the two cubes. We covered ratio in a previous lesson, so review your notes. So first step is, let's calculate the volume of each cube, which is s to the third power. So we have 2 cubed on the left and 4 cubed on the right, which will give us 8 and 64. Next, to find the ratio, we take the second cube volume, which is 64, divided by the first cube volume, which is 8. 64 divided by 8 is 8. So I would choose option C. Did you? Copy down the problem. Pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume the video when you're ready to check yourself. Remember, you were asked to find the number of $20 stacks that can fill 3 drawers. So let's break this problem down. First, I'm going to calculate the volume of 1 drawer and 1 stack per my picture. So that's length times width times height, with all 3 numbers multiplied together. Next, I'm going to divide the volume of 1 drawer by volume of 1 stack. This will tell me what? What does 80 represent? Can you finish answering the problem now? Did you get it right? Let's look at this another way. Here's the same problem. I opted to draw it out. Smaller calculations will still get me to the correct solution. If you can figure out the mechanics of a problem, you don't always need to use a formula. So here's my drawer. I made it really big so you can see. So the first thing I did was take the 30 centimeters across for the drawer at the front, and I divided by the 6 across the front of 1 stack, and that gives me 5. So I'm going to divide the drawer right here in the front in 5 sections. Then I took the 60 long off the drawer and divided it by 15 long for the stack, and I'll get 4. Okay. So if I do 5 times 4 equals 20, that means I have 20 stacks laid out at the bottom of the drawer. But wait, there's more. Let's take that 12 and divide it by 3, which is how high the drawer and the 1 stack is. So now I can divide this into 4 things. Okay, which means 20 stacks laid out flat times 4 levels is 80. But remember, we were asked to find how many stacks will fill 3 drawers. So 80 times 3 is 240. Just another option. Copy down the problem. Pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume the video to check yourself. Did you get it correct? The volume cylinder formula is really just for 1 whole cylinder. We only had half of one, which changed our answer at the end. So initially, when I solved the problem with volume of a cylinder, it gave me 49. And that was one of my options here. However, this is half of a cylinder. So if I divide that by 2, I actually get B instead. Be careful for problems like this. Copy down the problem. Pause the video to work it out on your own. Resume the video to check yourself. Did you get this correct? Fractions are real numbers and are not going anywhere anytime soon. Therefore, you must know how to handle whether that means converting an improper fraction or a decimal when necessary. So, what do we need to calculate the answer to this question? Well, we need to calculate the volume. Not necessarily the volume of the aquarium, but the volume of the water. So the 1.5 foot height that I have off to the left actually changes to 1.5 times 3 going across the bottom and times 2 on the side. Again, you don't necessarily, because you're multiplying 3 numbers together, you don't actually have to use the numbers in their exact places. You can just multiply them out and it'll still work out for you. What does the 9 represent here? Can you finish this problem out now? So remember, 1 cubic foot of water weighs approximately 62 pounds. So if 9 is the volume of the water multiplied by 62 should give us that answer of C, 558 pounds. I hope you learned something and thank you for watching.